I never imagined I would be the kind of woman who struggled with her own heart. At 34, I had always seen myself as responsible, steady, loyal, and grounded. I married my college sweetheart, Andrew, and together we built a quiet, warm life that made sense. We bought a small two-story home in Raleigh, North Carolina, with a yard just big enough for my herb garden and his relentless dream of growing tomatoes that never survived more than a month. We had our weekend routines, our morning coffees, our Sunday grocery runs, and a quiet kind of love that felt easy, predictable, safe, and maybe that was part of the reason things happened the way they did. It started the day my company hired a new project coordinator named Ethan Walker. He was polite and soft-spoken, the kind of person who listened fully when you talked. That alone made him stand out in an office where people tended to multitask even through greetings. I didn't think much of him at first. I had been with the company for 6 years and seen dozens of new faces come and go. But Ethan had a calm, steady presence that felt grounding in a way I didn't want to acknowledge. The first real conversation we had happened near the coffee machine. I remember because I spilled some creamer on my shirt, and he handed me a napkin with the kindest expression, one that didn't judge, didn't laugh, didn't comment. He simply helped. It wasn't remarkable, but it was warm. And sometimes warmth is all the heart needs to wake up. Over the next few weeks, we ended up working together on a major client project, which meant long meetings, long discussions, and long hours in the same room. And slowly, without meaning to, I began to look forward to seeing him. Not in a dramatic way, not in a way that made my stomach twist, but in a way that made the workday feel easier. He brought a sense of order where things felt chaotic. He brought patience where I often felt pressure. He brought laughter where I had forgotten what casual joy at work felt like. I found myself talking more during those meetings, sharing ideas more freely, and even challenging myself to think in ways I hadn't before. I felt, noticed, valued, and I hated that I enjoyed it so much. At home, Andrew was still the steady, gentle husband he had always been. But I started noticing the things we weren't doing anymore. We weren't asking about each other's days with genuine interest. We weren't sitting on the couch at night talking about anything real. We weren't checking in emotionally the way we used to. Life had turned us into two busy people coexisting, and I didn't realize how far we had drifted until I felt the contrast at work. I told myself nothing was happening. Nothing inappropriate had been said, done, or implied. It was just a connection, a friendly one, a harmless one. But harmless things are dangerous when the heart is tired. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, I got home later than usual. The project deadline was close, tensions were high, and being around Ethan had lifted some of that weight without me even noticing. When I walked through the front door, Andrew looked up from the couch. He paused the TV and gave me a tired but hopeful smile. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, but something inside me twisted. I wasn't okay, and I knew it. We spent the evening cooking dinner together, but everything felt slightly off. Or maybe I was the one who had shifted. At one point, Andrew bumped my shoulder in a playful way, something he used to do all the time, and I flinched. Not because I didn't want him there, but because part of me felt guilty. Guilty for looking forward to moments at work. Guilty for comparing the two connections. Guilty for not having told him anything about what I was going through. That night, as I lay in bed next to him, staring up at the ceiling, I asked myself a question I never imagined asking. How did I get here? The next day at work, Ethan and I were scheduled for a meeting in one of the smaller conference rooms. I brought my laptop and coffee and tried to keep my mind steady. The meeting went well, but toward the end, he paused and looked at me with a kind of quiet concern. "You seem a little off today," he said gently. "Everything okay?" For a split second, it felt like a door opened. A door where I could confess things I had no right to confess. A door where feelings could become real. A door I wasn't allowed to walk through. I forced myself to smile. "Just tired. Long week." He nodded, accepting the explanation without pushing. "If you ever need help with anything, let me know." I mean that, and that was the moment I realized the connection wasn't just in my head. He cared, maybe not romantically, maybe not intentionally, but he cared in a way I had been craving without knowing it. I walked out of that meeting feeling both understood and terrified. Over the next few days, I tried to distance myself. I asked my supervisor if someone else could help finalize the project. I adjusted my schedule. I told Andrew I wanted more date nights, more conversations, more time together. I tried to pull myself back into the life I had chosen, the life I loved. But the project was too far along, and my supervisor insisted I stay on it until completion. And Ethan, he noticed the shift. One afternoon, after a long group meeting, he caught up with me in the hallway. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked quietly. The question hit me harder than I expected. He wasn't defensive. He was genuinely concerned. "No," I said quickly. "You didn't do anything wrong. Then why does it feel like you're avoiding me?" I could have lied. I could have brushed it off. But I didn't. I chose honesty. Safe honesty, the kind that protects everyone involved. I'm married, I said softly. He blinked. I know. And sometimes, when life gets overwhelming, feelings get confusing. Even when you don't want them to. His expression shifted. Not to guilt, not to discomfort, but to understanding. A deep, empathetic kind of understanding. I would never want to make things harder for you, he said sincerely. If you need distance, I'll respect that. That conversation wasn't dramatic or charged. It didn't end with anything emotional or suggestive. It was simply honest, and that honesty saved me. After that, Ethan kept things strictly professional. Not cold, not awkward, just respectfully distant. I admired him for that. It made everything easier. It made me feel safe again. But the emotional work was just beginning. Because the real problem wasn't Ethan. It was the space that had grown between Andrew and me, the silence we'd allowed for too long. One night, after a quiet dinner, I gathered the courage to sit down with him. We hadn't had a real talk in months. He looked up from his plate with cautious curiosity. Andrew, I said gently, can we talk? Really talk? He set down his fork and nodded slowly. Yeah, of course. I took a deep breath. I haven't been feeling like myself lately. And I think I've been drifting away without meaning to. He didn't interrupt. He waited. I didn't do anything wrong. I continued, choosing my words carefully, but I realized something important. I've been lonely, even with you here, and it scared me. His shoulders softened, and he breathed out. I felt it too, he admitted. I just didn't know how to say it. And just like that, the wall between us cracked open. I want us back, I whispered. I want our connection back. I miss what we had. He reached across the table, not dramatically, not desperately, but simply, like a man who loved me and wanted to understand. Then let's fix it, together. And we did. We started going on evening walks again. We sat on the couch without our phones and talked about everything and nothing. We made weekend plans. We cooked together on purpose instead of by habit. And slowly, gently, our connection began to heal. At work, I kept things respectful and professional with Ethan. He did the same. There were no lingering moments, no emotional entanglements. Just mutual respect. Once the project ended, our interactions became minimal, and eventually routine. Months later, I realized something important. Feelings aren't what define loyalty. Choices do. And I chose my marriage. I chose the man who shared my history, my home, my dreams. I chose the man who looked at me with steady love even when I felt lost. I chose the life we built together, not because it was perfect, but because it was real. And when I look back at everything now, I don't feel shame. I feel grateful, because sometimes life gives you a wake-up call in the form of a person you were never meant to be with. Someone who shows you something you forgot about yourself. Someone who helps you return to where your heart truly belongs. Andrew and I are stronger today than we were a year ago. We talk more, listen more, laugh more. We take care of each other with intention. And I've learned that love isn't a feeling, it's a decision you make, every single day. As for Ethan, we remain friendly coworkers who share occasional small talk near the coffee machine. Nothing more, nothing less. And that's exactly how it should be. Because sometimes the greatest emotional challenge of your life is simply remembering who you already promised your heart to, and choosing to keep that promise, even when life tries to distract you. And that's what changed everything.